I want everyone to close their eyes. Please. Now, think about one person, anyone, anyone who has quietly become a part of your lives. Now, think about the last conversation you had with this person. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Chances are you couldn't remember your exact words, but I can almost guarantee you remember how they made you feel. And somewhere, they remember how you made them feel as well. I never used to think about it that way. I always thought people remembered us for our big moments, our achievements, celebrations, milestones. But over the years, I've understood that we're remembered for something much quieter. The way we treated people around us, the way we made them feel around us. Today, I want to tell you three stories of my life which changed the way I looked at the people around me and the person I was becoming. But one thing, while listening, don't think about me, think about yourself. Because somewhere in my stories, you'll find your own. My first story, it's about the people who we love the most. Let me ask you something. Have you ever hurt someone you love without even realizing you have? A friend, a parent, a sibling? Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because in that moment you were irritated, annoyed, sad, or just too comfortable. I think most of us have. I do every day. For example, one day my mother and I had an argument. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just one of those moments, just one of those arguments where I absolutely convinced myself I was mature. That lasted for around 24 hours. Anyways, during the argument, I spoke to her a bit more harshly than I should have. The conversation ended. Life moved on. Or at least I thought it did. Because the next day, when everything had calmed down, she came to me and said something. Something I'll never forget. She said, "You know, Beer, what you said yesterday, I kept thinking about it the entire night. And it hurts." That's when I understood something about mothers. They don't need to win arguments, they just need one emotional sentence. And that was it. No lecture, no anger, just one simple sentence. And somehow, that one sentence, it hurt far more than anything else. Because while I had moved on, she had carried my words with her the entire night. And that's when I realized something. The people closest to us often carry the weight of our words far longer than we do. And what frightened me was not that I wanted to hurt someone, but that I could do it without even realizing it, without even noticing. That was my first lesson. Kindness isn't tested in the big moments, it's tested in the small ones, the ordinary ones, the ones we live every day, every minute, every second, especially with the people we love the most. But this one lesson, it didn't change everything overnight. It simply created a small pause where there wasn't one. And sometimes that's all you need: a quicker sorry, a softer sentence, and a little bit more of patience. Because the greatest changes don't come from the greatest gestures. They come from the small, ordinary moments that we handled a little bit better than yesterday. That brings me to my second story. My second story starts with me applying to a foreign exchange program. So, a German student named Konstantin came to live with me and my family for 3 months, and later I went to live with him in Germany. While I signed up for this program, I imagined friendship, memories, and stories I'd tell for the years to come. But reality always doesn't turn out the way we think it will. Because when Konstantin arrived, I still remember this. He stood at my gate, looked at me, and smiled. and then hugged me. A real hug. Warm, open, genuine. And thinking about that moment now, it kills me. Because what came after was anything but good. Because what came after, I can't talk about it. But I will. I wasn't the friend I was supposed to be. When he was here, I didn't give him enough time. I didn't even make an effort to get to know him. It was almost like I was ignoring him in my own house. And the worst part was, I didn't even know why. Maybe I didn't care enough. Maybe I didn't want to. Or maybe I was too busy doing what I was back then. Whatever the reason was, I distanced myself completely. He still enjoyed India. He roamed around, explored, met new people, and made wonderful memories. But if I am honest, I don't think I'm part of the good ones. And I only realized this later when I went to Germany. Because this time, standing in Frankfurt airport, there was no hug, just a handshake. Cold, distant, yet polite. That handshake lasted for less than a second, but I've been thinking about it for more than a year now. It made me think about the thoughts. I wish I could have cared louder. I wish I could have noticed just a bit sooner. These thoughts kept haunting me and haunting me until the day I realized I can't change my past, but I can care for my future. That day, I vowed every relation I had and every relation that was going to come in my life, I vowed I'd cherish it. I'd hold on to it as close as possible. That was my second lesson. Awareness often arrives through regret, teaching us that kindness is not only about intention, it's also about showing it when it truly matters. So, Konstantin, es tut mir wirklich leid. That's all I can say to you. Now, this brings us to my third story. My third story is about a friendship. Maybe you've had one like this. The kind where talking didn't take any effort, where conversations happened naturally, and where silence was comfortable because you knew the friendship isn't going anywhere. Until one day something changed. Not that there was one big fight, not that someone stopped caring, but life simply became a bit more complicated. Words became harder to find, conversations became shorter, and before either me or my friend knew it, there was a distance set between us. At a time, I remember telling my friend I needed some time to myself to sort out my own thoughts. So I stepped back for a couple of days. What I didn't know was those couple of days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into silence. Every day I convinced myself I'd explain myself later, tomorrow. Fun thing about tomorrow, it never comes. It still hasn't come. At that time, I thought I was protecting myself by trying to hide what I actually felt. But in reality, I was just protecting my own comfort. I never for once stopped and thought what the silence must have felt for the other person. I only thought about what it did to me. And that's what I regret the most. Not that friendship changed, but that someone else had to carry the weight of confusion and uncertainty, only because I was too afraid to communicate honestly. This incident made me remember moments in my life which made me scared of the person I was before. Because somewhere along the way, there was someone whose calls I kept ignoring for years. A friend whose trust I took too lightly. Another who smiled along and laughed quietly while I made comments about something they were already insecure about. And another who quietly slipped into the background while I was too busy trying to fit in somewhere else. All of these moments, when they happened, didn't seem important. Looking back right now, every single one of them was. And that's the strange thing about regret. It rarely comes from the things we meant to do, it comes from the things that we thought could wait. And to that one friendship that became quieter because of me, I hope you know this. I am sorry for the silence, for the uncertainty, and for every moment that I made you feel less important than you truly are. Because of this incident, I got a touch of clarity and a strike of reality. And now, every difficult conversation happens a bit sooner than later. Apologies don't wait to be turned into memories. And before every conversation, there's a small pause to ask a simple question. Is this going to make the other person feel lighter or heavier? That was my third lesson. The deepest regrets don't come from the love we fail to feel, they come from the care we failed to show, from the moments and the conversations we ignored and postponed, and the people we thought who would understand. That brings me to why I call this speech The Quiet Things We Leave Behind. Because looking back, all of these moments were ordinary conversations, ordinary choices, on ordinary days. The only thing which made them unforgettable was that I understood them just a bit late. So, if there's anything you've learned from my speech today, not speech, my talk, I hope it's this. Don't wait for regret to teach you what reflection can teach you today. Because the smallest choices in our lives often leave the deepest marks, the biggest marks. And in the words of Henley, I say, at the end of the day, you are the master of your own soul and the captain of your own fate. So it's up to you to change. It's up to you to turn the turn before it's too late. Because the person you choose to be today becomes a memory someone carries tomorrow. And you want that memory to have a touch of gentleness. Thank you so much for listening.